Hi, it's Curtis with theurbanfarmer.co. Hit the subscribe button right now if you want to see more videos like this, and please like and share these videos with your friends. Today's question is from Brianna from Williams Lake. She's got a question about spreadsheets, and I've paraphrased this question a little bit just to make it shorter. What's the best way to use spreadsheets, and how do you link them together, and what are the most crucial things to track? So I do use spreadsheets, and I encourage all farmers to do the same. It's a great way of keeping track of your information and sort of journaling your experiences on the farm. And so, it's a lot more efficient than using a journal in sort of the pen and paper sense. My first year of farming, a mentor of mine, a fellow farmer, said I should journal, and it was good advice. He said, keep a journal, always write things down, and I did. I had just a pen and paper journal that I wrote everything in, all my notes about the season, and when it came time to look back at this journal in the winter as I was planning my next season, flipping through this thing to find out what did I say about this, or how did I do this, it was so inefficient, and it really wasted a lot of time. The nice thing about spreadsheets is that you can sort them by categories. So it's really easy to sift through information and find certain things, whether it's a date something was planted, or a type of crop, or a place that it was planted, or the method it was planted, whatever it is. It's so much easier to go through it that way. And so on all of my spreadsheets, I have a notes part on the end where I just put random notes if I have them. And so that way, if there's things that don't quite fit into those column categories, you can just have it in the notes form. So I encourage you to use spreadsheets, and there's about 6 different types of spreadsheets that I use. The first one is for tracking what goes on in the nursery. The second is planting, so what gets planted out in the field. I track my yields so that whenever something comes off the field. I track my sales, and I track my weekly sales as sort of an overall look on the season, so the sum gross total of every single week. And then I also have a sheet that I call a grand sheet. It's basically a profile sheet of all of the crops that I grow and all of the information about those crops, like the density at which they're planted, whether it's direct seeded or transplanted, what I get as an average yield, the time of year that it's planted in, all kinds of information. And basically you can just make a sheet like this yourself and just keep adding to it as you go through your years. And the more you experience, the more you track, the more you start to see averages and consistencies. And then you constantly update this sheet, and then after a number of years, the sheet will be incredible. And this is what I've built over the years, and it's the kind of thing that sure I could give to people, and I often have it available for people who take my workshops, but there's always going to be a difference in what I can do here as far as the density at which things are planted or the yield that I get. There's always going to be a difference with that from bioregion to bioregion. So North America is a huge place, and what a bed of spinach could yield in the northwest of the US to somewhere in Florida could be completely different. So it's good to compile that information for yourself. So let me just take you through some of the spreadsheets that I use and some of the common things that I put in them. So the first one is a nursery sheet. So on this sheet, it'll have a date, the crop, the cell size that it's planted, that the seeds are started in, the date that I expect it to go out into the ground, the day I expect it to move out of that plug and be potted up into another plug, the variety of the crop, so maybe it's spinach, or maybe it's some kind of tomato, but it's a cherry tomato variety, things like this. And there's all kinds of other categories you could put in there. The key to linking these together before I go on with the rest of them is having some consistencies in them. So things like date, crop type, and perhaps location and where they're going to be planted. If you have those as your first 3 columns on all those sheets, it'll be a lot easier to look at your yield sheet, find the date or a crop that was planted, and then go back in your nursery or your planting sheet and see how they correlate. So that's how I correlate them. I don't have any real technical advice on how to use a formula to link them all together. I'm not that advanced with using spreadsheets. So the second type of spreadsheet I use is a planting sheet, and so this is an in-field record of everything that gets planted. So anytime something gets transplanted into a bed, every time something gets direct seeded into a bed, it all goes into this sheet. And again, some of those main categories of date, crop type, and plot location or bed number is really important. And with the planting sheet I always have that. Every bed on my farm is numerically categorized. So I'll have, say, for example, a plot name, say Glenwood Avenue, segment 1, beds 1 through 10, segment 2, beds 1 through 10, so on and so forth. So it's all numerically categorized. And the yield sheet is very similar to the planting sheet. All the same information at the front, so the date, crop type, location. And then on the yield sheet you'd have things like how much yield you got for the bed, and or if you harvested only a certain amount of that bed. So I harvested bed segment 2, bed 5, spinach, and I only harvested 10 feet, but I yielded 10 pounds, for example, something like that. A sales sheet is really important. So as I'm receiving orders from restaurants, this goes into just a simple spreadsheet. You know, I'll have, say, 10 restaurant customers that placed orders for this week, and I've got a farmer's market. So all of that is labeled with the date, the customer, the product that they're being sold, the units and the amount of the volume of that unit, the price, so on and so forth. All of that's tracked in there. On Fridays when I go and put together restaurant orders, I'll actually print that spreadsheet up into actually, I think I do 3 different types of sheets. I'll print a sheet that is sorted by crop type, so it'll be all the spinach orders I have, all the lettuce orders I have, and then which customer they're for. And then I'll have another sheet, a second sheet, that is the way the orders are put together. So for restaurant A, B, and C, these are their orders. And then the third sheet would be what I'm bringing to the farmer's market. So on that first sheet, where it's each crop listed or each product listed, the farmer's market will be in there. So it's like, I need spinach, this much total spinach for these customers, including the farmer's market or something like that. I track, so the weekly sales are really important. And so this is basically just a one sheet. It lists every week that I have in the farming season. So in the winter, I'll just plot this up, look at the calendar, Monday through Sunday from all of the weeks of my entire growing season. And then what goes into this, it's just a table graph, basically has those dates and then has the sum gross of each of those weeks, and then kind of how it breaks down. Another column that's how much I sold at the farmer's market, how much I sold at restaurants. I also have a notes category on there that will say if I was short on any particular items in that week, and I track that, so when I go back the next year, I can look at this sort of when I'm planning my farming season. I can look and say, hey, I had a lot of shortages for radishes and lettuce this week, so that tells me that I should bump that up for next season, or something like that. And then the final thing is the crop profiles, and I mentioned that a little at the beginning, but I'll just reiterate it a little bit here, is that the more you track your yields and your planting dates and all these things, the better idea you're going to get over the years on how the perfect way to plant a certain crop or grow a certain crop. And so that sheet, your profile sheet, your grand sheet I call it, is going to be revised constantly, and mine has been for 5 years. It's totally different now than it was when I first started. But it's nice to start with a frame of reference. There's many books out there like Elliot Coleman's or Jean-Martin Fortier's books that have great points of reference on where you can start, but you're going to have to modify that information for your own bioregion or even for what your own market can bear. So I put things like, you know, the times it gets planted, the average date to maturity, the average yield, how much seed I use in the bed, how much I sell this thing per pound or per bunch or whatever it is, the types of markets that it sells. It's a big sheet. And this is a great thing to have so that if you have employees, you know, you can have this sheet, laminate it, give it to somebody and say, go and plant these things. And then it's just a great point of reference for them. So I hope that explains enough about spreadsheets. It's actually a big topic. It's something that I cover a lot of in my workshops. But I hope that gives you a good place to start. So if you want to see more of these videos, please subscribe, share, and like them. Thank you.